There's nothing quite like a baseball replay to get you really interested in sort of the unknown part of baseball history, the guys who you never heard of, the guys who've been forgotten to time, the guys who may have been stars in their own right and we just didn't know at the time, people like that. We're going to learn here a little bit today about Harry Niles, who I had never heard of before. Not before that game earlier on today, and now we know all about him. Harry Niles had a very limited career. I mean, he played with the Browns in 06 and 07, not 2006 and 7. I mean, there were no St. Louis Browns, but 1906, 1907. 1908, he split his time between the Highlanders and the Red Sox, interestingly enough. 1909 looks like he was a full-time player with the Red Sox, and then 1910 between the Red Sox and the Cleveland Naps at the time. Never really much of a hitter for average. Did have a fairly good on-base percentage for the time, which helped him especially in 07 and 08 to these good OPS plus numbers. 5.8 career WAR, so the modern statistics tend to look at him favorably. And of course, I mean, his performance tailed off a little bit there starting in 1909, although I would argue, looking directly at this, that he was probably, well, I don't know, he did have a tail off in slugging percentage. He was, other than that slugging percentage issue, and it's the difference are those home runs, he was probably largely the same player as he was before and just wasn't good enough to stay in with the league. Take a quick look over here and see, I've complained about Arfield before, and this gives you kind of an example why you see these wild fluctuations. He was pretty bad with the Highlanders, and yet looked okay with the Red Sox, and if we knew more about how this was actually calculated, we probably could actually take a look at that and figure out exactly what's going on. Hard for me to say one way or another. Interesting thing about Harry Niles here, just looking at this, is that Niles was known, let's see if I can find this again here. I only glanced at this a second ago. Here we go. He briefly attracted the monkey or home run Harry after hitting a home run in back-to-back games on May 18th and 19th for the Highlanders. So, in fact, let's see if we can find that. That would be probably, May 20th, 1908. In fact, what we can do here is we can look for Harry Niles and 5/20/1908 in New York. This is always, of course, I'm not sponsored by anybody, but we'll just look for Niles then. But this is how convenient newspapers.com is, and you can go here and take a quick look and see in a couple of different pages what it looks like. Rules is not the same as Niles. Thank you very much. There you go. Yeah, Niles, the first man up for the Yankees, smashed a home run down the left field foul line. I'm not sure, though, if they mention here that he had hit one in the game before. My guess is that I probably don't have access to the New York newspapers that gave him the nickname, unfortunately. And, that happens from time to time. The second ball that Killian pitched to Niles had "Come and play with me" written all over it, and Harry accepted the invitation. He soaked it on a line past Cobb for a home run. And then Keeler was safe, blah, 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 blah. Take a quick look here as well, because sometimes they'll give you like the gossip of the game, which will give you all the good stuff. There's baseball notes. We can take a look down here just to check really quick. Yeah, Niles' home run yesterday was his second in 2 consecutive days. So Niles, so far in our replay, as you remember seeing from this morning, has 5 home runs in like 20 games. He might be a little bit overpowered there. I don't know, Bill, if Bill's staff is watching this, maybe you can give me some sort of comment, let me know what's going on. He had 5 in the full season in 1908, 4 for the Highlanders, 1 for the Red Sox, and that contributed to his production. And remember, this is at a time when nobody's hitting home runs. In fact, if we look over into 1908, let's see if we can find 1908 page, and we can see the batting leaders. Of course, I'm not showing this to you. There we go. Batting leaders for 1908 American League. In terms of home runs, Crawford led the league with 7. So Niles was tied for third with 3 other players, each of whom had 5. Don't remember the last time is that you saw a season where if you had 5 home runs, you were in the top 5, but that's exactly what happened in 1908. How about that, at least in the American League? We'll look at the National League for the sake of comparison. Ah, yes, that's right. Tim Jordan with the Superbas had 12, and Honus Wagner had 10. Bet you didn't know that. So Niles would not have been in great company in the National League, but in the American League, he was A-OK. So there you go. There's a real quick little look at him. I haven't done a whole bunch of research on his career and all that stuff. That's something that I'll probably leave for a later time. But that's kind of, what happens and what you learn here about this guy who I had never heard of before in my life. I had no idea who this guy was. A very, very obscure player with the Highlanders, and He was also just so happens to be fairly good home run hitter, at least for one season. And I do think that in this case, WAR probably does serve him well. I mean, I think that this is another example of a guy. I mean, I'll give you a look at this here before we close out. Probably hard to see, so I will increase the zoom here to 150 again. You look at his age. He started in the majors at age 25, right? If we click on show minors, and if it actually shows us something, if it has anything, it might not have anything to show us, so much for that. I'm assuming he was in the minors before. In fact, if we actually took the time to read all of this, yeah, he was playing in Michigan, then up in Toledo, ended up in the Southern Association in 1906, had a 335 average in 47 games. That led to, that can't be right because, yeah, that can't be right. It must have been 1905. It must have been 1905 because 1906 he played the whole season with St. Louis. Anyway, but yeah, when you look at this guy, you think this guy was probably a fairly good player. He's peaking right here at age like 26, 27 or so, you know. He probably would have been a good player if he had found his way to the major leagues before then, you know. But unfortunately, he had a pretty swift decline afterwards, and that's the end of Harry Niles. And my hope is that the rest of us don't have a swift decline like that, and that we can live on to live beyond our 30th birthday, unlike poor Harry Niles. So keep him in mind when you run into those problems in your life, and I certainly will as well. I will talk with you a little bit later. We'll talk to you then. Bye.